we have to talk about Kevin Durant again. So Kevin Durant had some very pointed replies the other night to various tweets having to do with the Team Serbia, Team USA game. One of them came from a friend of the show, SwipaCam.
Swipa was congratulating Serbia, and he said Serbia took the most talented team in the history of the planet to the wire with a medal on the line. Team USA was a 16-point favorite. The whole country should be proud. And then obviously Kevin Durant responded to that with, "Where are you from?" I don't know if he took some kind of issue with something with what Swipa said. If he assumed Swipa was being sarcastic about something, I don't know. Swipa was talking about it on plenty of shows today. He was on Locked On Nuggets talking about it. So you guys can go check his comments out about that.
So it didn't stop here, right? Kevin Durant was obviously getting like replies on his reply, including from yourself, with people saying like, "What's wrong with him congratulating Serbia for this, that, or the other?" And it kind of spiraled from there, where he's quote tweeting people. I believe one of the tweets actually, Wes, if you're okay with us pulling this one
Go
up,
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
was a response to something that Wes said, where first, like, KD is kind of airing his general grievance about
Yeah.
NBA fan culture and how we drum up narratives, where he says, let's talk about fan culture that's been created recently. A lot of huge egos who believe they are the reason for the advancement of a sport, a lot of idol worship, a lot of hate and division based off of wins and losses, a lot of disrespect of the work being put in by these athletes. My initial impression of KD's reaction to Swipa was that he clearly didn't get Swipa's actual intent. Like, maybe he thought he was being sarcastic or like being too, I don't know, in favor of Team Serbia by congratulating them for that game. And it's really funny. I tweeted this that night, that it's funny because Swipa does this constantly throughout the season. Swipa covers the
Yeah.
Nuggets, right? But when we're playing another very talented team, including teams that have Kevin Durant on them, he's constantly giving legitimate praise to the other stars on that team, whether they won or lost the game, for the stuff that they're doing. And it annoys me. But I did find it odd that in that particular moment, KD perceived as a lack of patriotism from Americans that seem to be rooting for another team against Team USA, especially in the context of an American sports fan base and basketball fan base in particular that doesn't tend to care a ton about international competitions.
Yeah, I mean, because my initial tweet when I was responding to KD, like his tweet that he said wasn't, I didn't really disagree with, but I was more
Mhm.
kind of talking about because he'd gone on a bit of a tirade before saying like, we don't care who you Denver Lames support, like Jokic isn't a god or
Right.
whatever, and it's like why he's got so much energy for Jokic, but my initial point was like people have done this. I guess it's not international is the only difference, but they've done it for Steph Curry and LeBron and pitted KD against these guys for 15 years. Like,
Yeah.
why has he all of a sudden got so much energy for people doing it for Jokic is why I was kind of confused. Because, like, you can't tell me that his mentions haven't been. We've seen it. His mentions have been blown up saying, like, you can't win without Steph. Like, LeBron's always better than you. Like, all of these things. But all of a sudden, when people start pushing this narrative that Jokic is the best in the world, he kind of seemed to get irritated by that. That was just my perspective. I guess can't speak for
You
really what
think
he
that it's
believed.
like Jokic is like on the tails of KD. Of all the active players, like, KD is maybe the closest one who's like
Yeah, maybe like he's
legacy.
pushing past you, like
Jokic's
KD.
like
Yeah, or it's
resume
like
is pushing up against. I think that part is true. Just the fact of, like, if you had to compare Jokic's like resume to any other active player, like, KD is the next closest
is
one.
the
He
guy
is like kind
because
of
he's not
nipping
at
on
Steph or
his
LeBron
heels.
level yet. But
And it's so funny that he's so preoccupied with trying to make sure that we know that our opinions and our takes
don't
don't
matter.
matter. But he's constantly getting into these little kerfuffles with fans online, and they usually have to do with Katie's place in these all-time debates, like, and where he ranks in the league even now. I can't remember if it was before or after that semifinal game. So he makes this comment when the question was about patriotism and playing for Team USA, just generally. And he says, a lot of bullshit happens in our country, but a lot of great things happen too. I think the fact that Kevin Durant made the comments well in advance of the Olympics about how he wanted to go into this competition and kind of dominate. I think that he's maybe bothered by the lack of discussion of like the specific styles of play in American basketball. Or like maybe we find it a little too interesting and like exotic. The fact
Mm.
that like, oh, other countries play basketball slightly differently. And like, this is so fascinating and interesting that we sort of lose sight of the specific developments in the game that are American, that came from American players, right? Steph Curry completely revolutionized the game of any one player that has played over the last, say, 20, 30 years. Steph Curry has probably changed how basketball is played. I can imagine those types of examples sort of floating through Katie's head when he's hearing all of this discussion, probably while he's at the games, but also obviously online as he's constantly lurking these different fan pages that are shit talking him. You can imagine all of those things swirling around in his head and him thinking like, well, wait a second, like there's a lot of good stuff that American basketball players have contributed to the game that just aren't appreciated as much. And I want our team to go out and show like how awesome we are.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm not trying to like dismiss your point, but like he
Yeah.
has a whole NBA season to have like American basketball be appreciated. And I know that, international styles are entering the league, and there's a debate about if the classic NBA superstars are resentful of them, if they're accepting of the European players and players from other countries or not. I think there's nothing wrong with KD being proud of like an American brand of basketball and wanting people to appreciate it, but he's like like a kid who goes to college and they learn something for like 2 years and they think they're like
Right.
in on this little secret knowledge that nobody else knows, and everyone else is like excluded, and it's like he thinks he has this esoteric view of basketball,
Mhm.
which I get because he's an elite player. So when he was
So is
saying,
college here the NBA?
yeah. And
Right.
I'm not saying that he doesn't have an immense knowledge about basketball more than any like person on earth. He always has this position of excluding fans and being like, I know what basketball really is and we know how to talk about it. The media doesn't know how to ask questions about it or understand it. The fans don't know how to talk about it or understand it, and only we
It's just
know.
very gatekeepy.
And he doubled down on it again with all these comments. But he was going in on Nuggets fans specifically and like about Jokic and all that. And so, like, real quick before we go into other things, what was it about Swipa? Like, do you think there was anything there with Swipa and like the Nuggets specifically?
I do because I entered this Nuggets fandom in the last like year and a half, like within the last year and a half. And one of the things that I've been able to sort of observe as I was more on the outside of it was, all of the discourse that was happening, particularly around the 2023 MVP debate. They basically like did what they did to Nuggets fans, what, say outside forces did to people who wanted to support like Bernie Sanders. They called them Bernie bros and they were like, oh, it's just all these like racist white guys that like don't want a woman to it. They've done to Nuggets fans, other fan bases basically say like, oh, all of the Nuggets fans are just like a bunch of racist white guys and there are no black people that support Jokic or should or whatever. And I think that I'm a little bit sensitive to implications of that. And I don't know necessarily that like that's what KD meant in that moment. But I do think the fact that he responded specifically to Swipa, and it wasn't the only post that he replied on, but Swipa is obviously clearly black in his profile picture. And the post that he wrote congratulating Serbia was completely innocuous. So I do think that there was an aspect of it for KD where he was a little bit more sensitive to like, hey man, like you should be like with me here on my side of this, and you're not. So he took it in a way that was less innocuous than it actually was. And I do think that there is, on some level, wanting more respect and appreciation for Black American basketball players. And that is kind of where Katie is coming from when I say that, like, he wants those contributions to the game to be appreciated more than they might be in his eyes. Like I'm talking about like from his perspective, he sees like all these like international styles, like you're talking about being discussed more. And it shouldn't take away from obviously the achievements of American basketball and basketball in the NBA, but it seems to for him. And so there's like a little bit of like grievance aspect there. And I do think the fact that Swipa is Black and like there's like this like weird like in grouping that, you know, you're either with us or against us, that sort of in my mind was being applied at a subconscious level. I couldn't separate out those factors when I was considering how KD went about this particular way, especially when he went to talk specifically about like Nuggets fans and us being corny and like all of this stuff. Is like it was hard for me to separate that out from all of the other discussions that I'd seen about like how, you know, racist all the white Nuggets fans are and that sort of thing. I don't know if you have any comment on that.
Well,
if
no,
you'd like to answer for your people.
No, I mean, I am happy that you can share that perspective, because I think a lot of people were speculating about that, and I don't know how Swipa sees it. I don't know how other people saw it.
Right.
I think it's fair to speculate about it and share his perspective, and I think Katie's also fair to like feel that way. It makes sense, but I just think a lot of people were pointing to.
Right, but he doesn't have to be a dick about it.
Sure. Unless you're in the Nuggets fandom, you don't really understand why the Nuggets fans were still rooting for Jokic.
I guess there's also the possibility that it was like all in good fun, KD. Like you don't know. A lot of the times, though, he comes on social media, it's pretty malicious, which in fairness, he gets a lot of hate. So I can understand why. It's just,
Sure.
But you don't know if he was just kind of.
This wasn't in reference to him, though. Like it wasn't really talking about him directly at all.
Exactly. That's why it was kind of strange. It was out of left field. Like Swipa didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, oh, these USA guys, like, look, they're frauds. They're lucky they got away or whatever. It was literally just complimenting Serbia for playing a good game against a formidable opponent, which in the tweet, he kind of also suggested how good USA is. Like the idea that you can look, it's like that double-edged sword where it's sure you're complimenting the team that lost, but you're also complimenting the team that won because they're so good.
Because why else compliment the team that lost?
Exactly. They're so good that just coming close to beating them is like an impressive feat. Like that's how good USA are. That like it's a big deal just to even come close to beating them.
Yeah.
That's the level they're seen at. So like I guess it could be frustrating when you're consistently winning and people are like, well, look at this team that came close to beating you, or international basketball's catching up and all this. But at the same time, it's kind of a compliment to USA. Well, it is a compliment to the USA that they're still seen as, if you can come close to beating them, like that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I think there's two ways to take it, and Kevin Durant maybe took it the negative way.
He decided to take it the negative way.
Yeah.
Well, it's like,
I mean, that's kind of like what he's done.
There's no reason that we should assume that he was like completely sober when he's like answering tweets at 5 a.m. or whatever while he's hanging out in Paris
or whatever. Like
right.
But I mean, he said before, we already went over this, how he wanted Team USA to beat teams by 50 and 40 and all that. So if someone's saying you guys are this good, he shouldn't take it as like trying to discredit them, like it was unfair, because he's used to the whole like you have a super team, it's not fair, especially with the Warriors.
True.
But that's what he wanted too. He wanted to be that dominant, and so. But I mean, just my thing was, because I was dealing with backlash of anyone rooting for another team that's not the United States if you live in the United States, and some people just can't like wrap their brain around how anyone could do that. I think that's like incredibly silly, and I don't understand how people don't realize how you can be fans of all different athletes and teams around the world. I mean, we have Wes here as a great example. Grew up in Australia, fan of many American players. You would have been happy if Australia won. You would have been happy if Serbia won. You know, sometimes that's just how it is. And that's how a lot of Nuggets fans were. Not that we were hating the U.S. and wanting them to lose. We weren't like really trying to take away from what they were doing. We just would rather have seen Jokic and Serbia win. And we have so many connections with Serbian people. They've come on the show. We've gone on their show. So we have special like social ties. So unless you're in the community, maybe you don't understand that. I like your point about how maybe it was all in good fun, because that's kind of what I was doing. And just to like briefly summarize, if I can, the reason why he quote tweeted me was I thought that it was a bad look for KD to respond to Swipa, just like we've been talking about. I said it was a scumbag move, which I wasn't thinking that like specifically about the word scumbag. People said that was too harsh. And so I don't like being told that I can't like criticize people on Twitter. I can root for whoever I want. There are people saying I couldn't root for Serbia. Can't be harsh to NBA players. So I was trying to take it to the next level by kind of doing a joke by upping the ante, if you will.
You really did. You did.
So I was
up
like,
the
okay,
ante.
if I can't say scumbag, then I'm going to say petty. I'm going to say insecure. I'm going to say ignorant. I'm going to say literally all of it just because I can. Because who cares? This is Twitter. Like, this is part of the culture. Did I
And when
take
you
it too
think
far?
about it-
Maybe. I'm not going to say that stuff to Kevin Durant's face. I don't actually like dislike him that much. And he still found that tweet. I didn't even tag him in it. I didn't respond to him directly saying that. I quoted one of my own tweets and he found it. And it kind of blew up, and it was all in good fun, and that's how it went down. And so it's kind of funny we had you on the show because we interacted with him. Both of us interacted with him, so it was a good time.
And when you think about it, upping the ante like that and becoming even more petty is maybe the most American thing you could do in that situation.
Yeah,
So,
it was. Yeah, I'm usually like,
USA.
I mean, it's funny too because I really do have like a very calm personality, and he quoted me saying Will's upset, which I've never been upset on Twitter.
I thought you were gonna say you've never been upset. I'm like,
No, I say everything with like such a relaxed personality, and people take it wherever they want. You know how it is. People miscommunicate on Twitter. It's a whole thing. So it was kind of all unfortunate, and I think there were legitimate things KD said that Nuggets fans could kind of be upset about, and also his own fans could be upset about because he's saying fans' opinions don't matter. That includes his own fans, and fans are what run the league. We watch it.
we don't run the league. We
Well, the
just
league wouldn't
finance
exist
it.
if no one was watching it. So
Well, I don't know. There's money laundering schemes out there. And to the audience, please remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and leave us a review. We're on all the audio platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Share us with your friends, share us with your family, share us with your enemies, share us with your family's enemies. Follow us on Instagram now. We're posting shorts on TikTok and Reels on Instagram as well at What's in a Game NBA. We also have a new clips channel on YouTube for people that just like those quick hits. It's at What's in a Game NBA Clips on YouTube. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.